I'm joined by a very special guest today. You guys might know him as Matt Hummel, but the Star Wars conversation that we had not too long ago, you can check it out on our YouTube channel. Hummel, welcome back to the Donnie Shields Unedited Podcast.
Oh, it's going to be fun unedited.
Always is. So for people that don't know you, can you emphasize what you want to do in life, what you do in life, who you are as a person?
I'm Batman.
He's Batman.
No. Obviously, Matt Hummel. You heard that before. I'm just a guy who wants to open up his creative box and just explore every possibility I could throw out there and have fun with what I have to offer in this world and also help people if I can. Nothing in particular, just business ideas. Someone's on the side of the street, I help and I save them. You know, like stuff like that. Maybe some dark humor here and there.
A lot of dark humor. So I want to ask you to get started. I know we're going to discuss Venom today on the podcast. But before we get into Venom, I do want to take us back to a little bit of reality because you and me, we haven't talked about this. Not a lot since it happened, but we had the Shield of Hope disc golf event that happened.
Yeah, that was great.
For the fans that don't know, for the fans that do know, the fans that don't know, that watch the channel, that are expecting a reel here soon. And the reel, I don't know if it's going to come out before this podcast or right after this podcast, but you'll get to see a highlight of how things transpired on that day. So, in your opinion, how was the day?
That was pretty well done. For a first one, you avoided the impromptu, that typical problem of, how are we going to do this? Let's just roll with it and go on the fly. We did have that issue in the beginning with filming, which, well, I mean, honestly, that's the footage you're going to see is the beginning, and that was us basically moving at a snail's pace. I thought we were moving at supersonic speeds, but Donnie was like, no, we're done here. Knock it off. And I'm like, I could do this. He's like, and I was like, okay, all right. But other than that, we had fun. It was a blast. We got some good shots in the few that we did. And I think it was a really nice day overall. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold. It started off a little chilly, but it picked up nicely. And it wasn't too swampy, thank God. That's what I was worried about. Water everywhere.
I was worried about that to an extent as well. And I saw listening back on when I'm editing this, you're like, oh, did he not tell you to wear boots?
Yeah.
I did. I emphasized the first 1 through 3 were bad. And that's all I want to say.
Did you really?
I did, actually. I told them both.
Okay, because, even Jesse, though, too?
Well, Jesse's played there before.
There
was no reason for him not to know.
That's true. That is completely fair. I just feel like no one took that seriously, and then when they stepped in like some of the mud, they were like, "Wow, this is bad," and it's just like, "Yes."
I still wore my Crocs. It didn't make a difference.
Oh yeah, well yeah, you're a trooper with that. You hop in the river with
Crocs
those.
everywhere. If you're not crocking, you aren't rocking.
Croc talk.
Please sponsor the show. But no, overall, I thought it was a very successful day. We raised money for Quilts of Valor, which for people that don't know, I will actually drop the link in this description. Quilts of Valor, it hits home because it was you guys know Jake from the show, but his grandfather, they had a ceremony for him for the Korea War. So they gave him a quilt not too long ago. And it helps, the quilts are for the idea of being like something to hug you and snuggle you and like comfort you.
Yeah. Comfort at its finest.
But and I don't want to speak on a part of his family or on behalf of his family, but it was a very emotional time and that did a lot of good for him himself. So I felt like that was the first one to go with, and that's what we did in 2021, and we're continuing that here in 2022 coming up. So that's a little brief intro, but yeah, so welcome back to the podcast, and we're here to discuss Venom. We're going to go with the non-spoiler first, so you guys can, you guys don't have to, you guys don't got to run away from the podcast real quick. You can wait because you'll see it pop up at the bottom of the screen for people that are listening to us only on Spotify. You'll be able to, we'll put the time code in that you can skip to or when that comes up. But for the people that are watching, spoiler will come across the bottom of the screen when we are ready. First of all, first take, just tell us about the first reaction coming out without spoilers. So what was the first reaction?
What, the movie itself? Yeah. Oh my goodness. I've been saying to people, what I've typically been saying, I don't want to say right away because I feel like someone might get upset about that. So I'll just leave it this way. Really good movie. Definitely a fun watch. Like the critics say, actually you told me this, Donnie, is that, if you like the critics said if you like the first one, you're going to like the second one. I think that is 110% true. I am very much the person who can watch a movie of just Tom Hardy and Venom going at it back and forth. And there's, I would say the opening act I'm not really, this isn't too spoilery or anything. It's just their natural relationship at this point. There's a good amount of that, and I'm pretty sure I was laughing throughout the theater, and people could hear me that were above us, because that's how hilarious that is. And I could watch a whole movie of that, like a full 2 hours, even 3 hours. If a TV show, I could just watch that, because to me that's hilarious. Some stupid stuff, but in general, though, the movie I think was well done. I think Sony continues to prove that they don't have to follow word for word the comic books, and they can invent their own creative new ways to make things interesting and spice it up. And I think that's what other studios should probably look at and say, who is in charge of this, because you're doing really good. And I really do feel like, as far as the fans go, people can see that and agree with it. Not everyone, but the majority will.
The fact that it made more in the box office than even the first Venom on opening weekend. Did you know that one? Not only did it set the pandemic record, it actually
I didn't.
More than
I know that's about to get beaten by James Bond during this time frame.
Well, okay, so let's before we even
I just want to say James Bond at the time of this recording is about to come out, I believe, either tonight, the first showings, or it's tomorrow. But either way, it's about to happen. So currently, Venom 2 is still on top. But go ahead.
No, I would like to. I think James Bond is a strong enough character too, and this is going to derail us from the Venom conversation, but I don't know, in America, okay? Overseas, it's going to do well.
Oh, James Bond, it already has. It's
I just don't
destroying.
know. I don't know if it's going to beat Venom. I don't predict a 90+ million opening weekend from it. And here's my reason. So the younger crowd, which obviously from 50 to teenagers, went to go see Venom. Okay, some
yes,
older people too,
fair.
but that's
no, that's fair. That's fair.
James Bond is the 40+ crowd. That's
and
really
I completely, and that's the part I agree.
And those are the type of people that right now, as we stand in the United States, those are the people that aren't going out too much because they're avoiding social contact.
Do we know if their theaters only like Venom was?
What do you mean?
So you know how
are you talking about the HBO what Dunes?
Yes, how
no,
some
that
movies...
that is just theater only.
Okay, so Venom was as well. So this is a completely fair fight at this point.
Yeah.
That's actually really awesome to know. And that says a lot too. Just a quick side note here, as far as Venom goes, for theaters only, I'm pretty sure that's beating all these movies that had backup help with Disney Plus or HBO Max or whatever else. But that's impressive. But it just clicked in my mind.
Now,
but
I believe Shang-Chi did not get
premiere access with Disney Plus.
Did they still do that with that one? I didn't see it up on there.
I'm pretty sure.
I know Black Widow did.
I'm pretty sure the issue with Black Widows was because that wasn't specified in the contract. But I think they went back and looked at it with, moving forward. But I could be very well wrong about that. I mean, I'm sure you could look that up at some point. But I'm fairly certain, 90 percentile, that Premiere Access is what's moving forward. And that's what I'm waiting for, is just waiting for Shang-Chi to show up on Disney Plus. I'm just going to watch it because nothing against the movie. I just really wanted a Moon Knight movie, and that's apparently not going to happen. So I'm a little butthurt about that. So I'm going to just wait for Disney Plus.
Well, Venom, in my opinion, getting back to actual Venom, I compared it very much to Pirates of the Caribbean 2.
Yes,
when we talked, because it's a very filler movie.
Okay, I'm surprised you threw that out there that quick. I was trying to avoid that.
Well, no, I'm not going to avoid it. I mean, for people, this is probably going to come out a week later from when we're talking anyway.
This is true.
But the fact that it's not that it's not good, because first Pirates of the Caribbean was really good. Third one was really good that tied up. I actually do enjoy the second one a lot with Davy Jones.
Yeah, and that's what I said.
Even though he rolls into the third one, I do like the chase kind of going down for the locker.
I just think it's very hard for you to not think of what is it even called? The mill. The mill they're fighting on.
Wheel.
To me, the wheel is too iconic to just say it's that movie's it's forgettable compared to the other two. Because to me, if I were to quickly rank those, I haven't watched these in a while, so it could. I've watched the first one several times, hence why I feel this way. But I would put my favorite is probably the third one, then the second one, and then the first ones. Because nothing against the first one, it's just that the world building that occurred in the second and third one was especially in the third one, was nuts. Because the first one just felt all about Johnny Depp, even though it wasn't. But
well, the whole series is around Johnny Depp.
Without
Johnny Depp, it's not Pirates of the Caribbean.
I should say Jack Sparrow. I apologize to whoever's a fan of.
No, it's still Johnny Depp.
It is still Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp is Johnny Depp in every movie. We just forget the characters' names. But it's a very filler episode. It's a really good movie, though.
It's a really good filler. I'll put it this way. It's a really good filler.
I watch a lot of DC and the Flash TV shows, And when they're filler because they're like, okay,
you can tell when it takes off like a vacation.
But
from
this,
the
even though
plot.
it was only 90 minutes runtime, this thing flew through. It was full of action. Maybe you could argue they disrespected Carnage a little bit, but I mean, they also tried to make it PG-13, which that was an interest. Well, when you say that, and I know what you mean by talking to you, but they
mean two different things though, as far as this goes.
When you said it shouldn't have been, it sounds like you watched a rated R film, but it was labeled PG-13. But really, you mean they should have never tried to make it PG-13. It should have been rated R, which I agree with.
I mean, yeah, I do say that. So there's moments like, and this is like mild. Like I'm gonna bring up the gas station scene. Do you consider that a filler at all?
No.
Okay, or not filler. Spoiler.
No, you're good.
See, I'm just misusing the word. So there's a scene in the gas station, and Carnage goes in there and has his way with somebody, and they hide him behind the counter. Well, it was smooth. It was really smooth execution, but they did off screen kind of beat him to a bloody pulp, and they didn't show any blood, and they didn't show really the hits that were taken to full effect to hide that gruesomeness. And I would argue right there, that alone, to me, that's the limitations of PG-13. Whereas rated R, they could have fun with that and show Carnage's true. I guess at that point it was Cletus, but Cletus is true. If you don't know, Cletus Cassidy is Carnage. But as far as that goes, they could show his true nature more. I mean, even though they did in his opening scene, they really did. That is one thing I need to backpedal to real quick.
Okay.
Because I did not talk about this with you. His scream, his initial scream. Actually, there's a trailer of it online that is fair game to talk about, but I'm not going to go into detail. But his initial scream in the prison was truthfully, I would argue, my favorite part of the film. It came out of nowhere, and on top of that, the tone of it was so unique, and it was overpowering. Like, it just overpowered every other audio, and it got quiet during that time frame. And it was probably the only part in that movie I would consider to be ripped from a horror movie, just because it was that well executed, and it really did an amazing job introducing the character. Not his initial scene where madness was happening. I'm talking about like the moment he actually walks around and does his thing. I thought that was so well executed, and if only that was in rated R, like the events following it, it would have been like the best scene, like that whole sequence, blown out of the water, like no competition out of both movies, in my opinion. But I mean, it was still really good. PG-13. That's just my personal take.
I mean, even the Mortal Kombat spinning that he did inside the prison, where he took out quite a few people with I don't know what they're called, tentacles, whatever you want to call them. That expands.
They are like tentacles.
So, appendages, I guess.
I mean, if you want to get technical.
But there was a lot of off-screen deaths, which in the first one would have just been on-screen. And listen, I get it. Maybe PG-13 brought them in more money. But I think the same people that would have went to go see it were going to go see it anyway, regardless of the rating. So I don't know why you just didn't go harder with it. That's how I feel. Venom is, you can get away with. So there's certain characters you can get away with PG-13. Like if we're talking about like the rated R, I guess, genre, and like people that like that's very much their circle, you can get away with certain people. Like for example, Deadpool. It doesn't seem like it, but I will pitch you away right now, okay? And I read this online years ago, so it's not even my idea. But have a PG-13 movie with Deadpool and him being able to break the fourth wall, realizing this, and then each and every time he censors himself on purpose and like makes jokes out of it, like son of a, and then just be in like something stupid. And so he's like, sorry, kiddos, I couldn't share that word with you. Like you could easily work with that. There's more material and more fun to be had with that. Venom, it works. Going back to what I said about how Sony's creative with this and they found a way to do their own thing, which again I applaud. Like seriously, good job for them. Like whoever did it, whoever came up with this, whatever team, like seriously, you're amazing. They're still not out of the woods yet. But.
They're not. But as far as that goes, though, the first one, PG-13, I have zero issues with. If someone were to bring it up, I'd be like, listen, you're just upset because you wanted to rate it R. I don't care. And this is where we slightly differ because you just kind of said it and I already said it. But PG-13 in this movie, it did feel a little watered down. And with a character like Venom, again, they can get away with that. However, they introduced Carnage, who's even more chaotic than him, hence the name. But, someone who just wants death and mayhem. and that's where it failed. Is that if it was any other character, honestly, like even if it was like Craven, right? Like yeah, he kills, he's a hunter, but like they could have passed that off still easily. But it's someone who likes to make it personal, hold you up and go and kill you. And I don't think he had any scene. Well, he did actually have a few scenes like that, but a lot of it was off screen with the stuff he did, and that's where it kind of fell down.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree with that, and I really have nothing else to say about it. I mean,
or beating the PG-13 horse.
Well, here's the thing.
You should have been more.
Andy Serkis knows what he's doing. What Planet of the Apes? So they brought him in specifically for the CGI and directing it along that line. I cannot complain about the look of the film. If anything, if I'm going to complain about the look, because we did one a little bit more rated R, the opening scene where you see Screech's love interest in him and what they reference as mutants, which that could be spoilers, but not really, because we're only thinking about what the term mutants can actually mean now in the universe.
So this is something that Donnie picked up on this. I didn't pick up on this, and that was something that I didn't even think about. Was that clever use? And,
well, nobody really knows yet, so that's kind of
and that could just be a loosely based term. Like that's so Sony's trying to fall into that market of, as you know, as we've talked about, we're going to be talking about. But
hold on. But Sony has no right to the X-Men, so that had to specifically be thrown in there by Marvel.
But you could still use the word mutant.
It's still copyright infringement.
No, not like that.
It's still. I believe that's still trademark, because not yet have we seen Disney Marvel use the word mutants.
Well, they're avoiding it because they're just trying to set it up. Yeah,
I get that, but I mean, at some point, we're not even allowed. And we're going to say this on air, but we're not even allowed to say Super Bowl sometimes because they come after you.
Super Bowl?
Super Bowl. You never heard about the Super Bowl thing?
No, I didn't. Oh yeah,
NFL does not like when you use the term Super Bowl.
Why?
Because it's their word. So,
okay.
Listen, that's not a new conversation. That's been out there. Okay, you need to research that.
I had no idea. I would love to
get
go.
taken down right now. No, I'm kidding. That won't happen.
FBI, open up.
But I almost wanted to see that style and tone, because when she gets hauled away early in the beginning, which really has nothing to do with necessarily the whole film. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. So when she gets hauled away at the beginning, you see young Woody Harrelson like, no, or whatever, and like screaming his head off because he's in love with this girl. It was a dark tone to start. And then got a little bit lighter and lighter. And even Carnage's scene, now the jail scene was like epically bad proportion. And bad, I mean like bad
and bad. And yes. Like that's Carnage's character doing its thing. And that's what and honestly, I actually just thought of that. I would honestly say that the movie starts off dark and then it gets lighter, like you said. And I didn't realize this, but that's the influence of Tom Hardy and Venom. Yeah. And I didn't realize that that's their tone. And now that I just realized that, I'm like, I really like it, but that really downplays that dark tone. And I'm like, maybe that's a good thing. I didn't even think of that. But Carnage does what Carnage does. And the character stays true to its roots. It really does. And it gets creative with how it's created, and that's an overuse of the word, but it's creative with how it originated. But its character is true to its character. Oh boy, I'm just reusing words all over the place. The iconic concept of Carnage is true to its roots, and I think they did a good job there. I just think that they failed it in the sense of elevating it, and that's where it goes back to that radar feeling. But as far as like the girl goes, though, like his girlfriend, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't know who she was until I was in the movie. You heard me in the theater, right? Yeah. I said, I'm like, who are you? And then I'm like, oh, I think I know who you are.
Well, even I didn't know, but I saw.
I do know who she is.
I saw the effect used every time, like she opened her mouth and like screamed, and that vibration sound. I was like, I've seen that too much on DC. Like,
imagine from DC, what's her name again? Black Canary.
Yeah, Canary? Well, I think it's just a canary because they keep alternating them.
They do, yeah.
There's like different canaries.
All right, think Canary. That's what we're talking about here, right? Think Canary from DC if you're a DC fan. If not, then think of whatever musician has the loudest vocal cords.
Adele,
Brendan Urie. I don't even know who else.
But I have to talk about staying true to character here real quick, because eventually Venom, as lighthearted as he kind of, as him and Tom Hardy they have that connection, and it makes you laugh. Let's not forget, Venom is still a villain, or at least they're going to consider him an anti-hero at this point, and that's going to play into a lot of stuff going forward, especially with the end credit scene.
Are we going full spoilers now?
Not yet.
Not yet. Right.
But how do they eventually take Venom from this? If you were writing it, how would you take Venom from this, laughable, him and Tom Hardy have these great connections.
Their banter, their symbiotic relationship.
They're going to have to go straight evil eventually. Because Venom, based off comic books and everything else. Now, listen, this is a different universe. This is a different cinematic universe. They don't have to use everything from the comics. They're not going to. But eventually, Venom jumps from body to body, which will eventually jump to different characters along the lines of Marvel. So, how do they get there?
So this is actually I'm not going to lie, this is actually a tough question because of the current legality of things. Because obviously there's a split between the Marvel franchises, and it's not really much of a split. It's just kind of like everything related to Venom.
But there's different characters within the Spider-Verse that Sony owns the property to, that Venom in the comic books does jump to.
I do think if you're going to throw Spider-Verse out there, you should explain that.
Because
I'm aware of that.
Okay, so every character, and this is just generic terms right now, every character that comes along the lines of like a Spider-Man, like whether it's Spider-Man's villain, Spider-Man's Uncle Ben, whatever, whoever it is, it's a Spider-Verse. So all the characters combined are under the Spider-Verse. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know. So in one of our previous small talks of this,
Listen, and I gotta send you a great clip because John Campea even referenced the Spider-Verse today, and I'm over here like, for people that understand what the Spider-Verse is, we're just over here like, okay, I just Spider-Verse, and you're over here like, what do you mean? I just want to classify. I want to clarify that in the legality of things, it's on Sony's end. Yes, and
not MCU. This is completely separate. If you didn't already know that. It's very complicated stuff, but we promise it'll get easier as time goes.
Well, it is also, let me state this out for probably our next conversation coming up here, is Sony and Marvel, this, as far as we know with the legality, is their last film where Spider-Man or like Spider-Man No Way Home, that's going to be the last film.
That we publicly know at this time. So
eventually Sony's going to be taking Spider-Man back. And so... you could possibly have a Venom and Spider-Man interaction. I don't see why you can't.
And that's honestly where this conversation's heading, because Donnie and I are very split, and you might enjoy the banter here. But going back to that original question, so how would I make... The problem is Venom, as a character right now, is more of a goofball than anything. I mean, he's obviously looking to do it, like eat people. Like, he still is. Like, that motivation is going to be there regardless, but
he has to survive. He has to
exactly, yeah. Parasite at its finest. The movie does explore that a little more, not too much. It kind of, and then pulls you back away from it. But going back to that original question, how would I make Venom the bad guy, essentially? So if I had it my way and it was easy to answer that, which I'm going to give you the easy answer, then probably the long-winded answer. Easy answer is, however this would be possible, if I had all the resources available, introduce Deadpool and have the symbiote bond to Deadpool, and then Deadpool take it off and go back to Tom Hardy. Because in the comics, that's actually like the most recent super secret origin that occurred, and that's what messed up the symbiote in the first place. Like, Venom was actually a good parasite, and then Deadpool's like, yeah, this guy's gonna, good luck with that, and he just put him off to the side, and then, ironically enough, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, put it on. And then after that, it got to Eddie Brock eventually. Obviously, we don't have Spider-Man, and we don't have Deadpool. So, like I said, if I could do it that way, I would do it that way with Deadpool, and at least have it so, like, give it to Deadpool, give it back to Eddie Brock, and then he's evil, because he would be all sorts of messed up. But that's the short answer. Long-winded answer is, if I had nothing to work with, if I didn't have... Do I get Spider-Man on the table with this? Can I throw him into this or no?
You can put Spider-Man on the... You can talk even about Agent Venom if you want to. I mean, everything's ready to go.
So I'm gonna go into the... Let's go based off the world that Sony has built so far. I'll just stick with that, and then maybe... Because the easy answer is just you throw Peter Parker in there, and you could easily make a love triangle, because it's not really a love triangle, but it's a relationship of that.
Well, let me do this, though, because it might make your explanation a little bit easier.
Yeah, go for it.
Throughout the comic books, throughout everything else, we know that these parasites, which is Venom and Carnage, when they spawn away from it, and I don't know the origin of Venom, but there's a god of the symbionts too, and they created whatever.
Which I'm really hoping to see one day.
So apparently, through time and space, they can reconnect with people even from multiple universes, anything else with different parasites. Could something like that make him evil too?
So that's what's kind of like the hot seat. Like if you go online, you could easily see it. Like I'm not even go onto a YouTube video and you'll find it instantly. But
if you go on the YouTube, the whole thing's spoiled.
Oh yeah, you'll find all the spoilers too.
So if you haven't seen it yet, probably don't watch
YouTube.
Yeah,
if you're waiting for like, I don't even know what it would be. I guess if you're waiting for DVD, if you're waiting for DVD, whatever streaming service will have it. I guess I'll put it that way. Avoid that, but yeah, I mean. What was the original question? Because now you got my...
No, it's still, how do you make Venom evil?
How do you make Venom? Yeah, no. But I mean, I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry.
Okay.
No, I had a brain fry. I know what I wanted to say now, okay?
We're having a hard time even thinking about it. But I
do have an answer.
I'm sure the studio heads already have this figured out.
I do have an answer, though.
But it's still tricky, so I wanted to...
What I wanted to say, though, as far as that Universal thing goes, so I'm all for that, and that everyone else is all for that. The issue is that, and this is what was so clever about the first Venom, is that he doesn't have all his abilities. Notice that they're all spider-related abilities. With that being said, I don't think it's safe to assume that he has that multi-universal connection. Because if he did, I feel like there'd be more... I feel like Venom wouldn't keep quiet about that as much as he has. That's my own tinfoil hat theory right there. I feel like if that does happen, it'll happen later on. Like Venom 3. Awesome, great. Prove me wrong. I would love to see it. As far as the original question of how do I make Venom evil, I think the best way, I think the only way, honestly, is to kill off Anne. And that's his love interest, if you didn't know.
And that's both their love interest, by the way.
That's both their love interest. And it's only the only other way I could think of is if there was some sort of villain out there who killed off Dan just to torture Anne, and then torture Anne in front of Venom.
Well, I have a theory about that already.
Yeah, and that's my answer, but go ahead.
That's something we all... Well, I can't say my theory because that's going to be for spoiler talk.
That is spoiler talk, all right.
But yeah, but if we're going to get to an Agent Venom, or if we're going to get to anybody else, eventually you cannot have the character of Eddie Brock connected because they are two separate people. Eddie Brock does not become Agent Venom. You know what I'm saying? There's different people that get passed down Venom, like the symbiote. So... if you're going to kill Anne, you not only have to, probably in like the same film, somewhere along the line, at the end of that film, whatever it's, Venom 3, Venom 4, eventually not only does Anne have to die, but eventually Eddie has to die too. And I don't think people make that connection, but you can't have Eddie Brock just walking out somewhere in the universe, like in the Spider-Verse without Venom. Like, I don't know the comic books enough to know if he does die, but I have a hard time in this film. There's certain scenes where Venom comes back to Tom Hardy and to Eddie Brock. I should really say Eddie Brock more than Tom Hardy, but anyways.
I've been doing that too.
Venom comes back to Tom Hardy. My goodness.
See, no, it's hard. And for the record, real quick, the reason why we're doing that is because Tom Hardy's performance is like as Eddie Brock and as Venom, because I'm pretty sure he does the voice. I might be wrong about that. I never checked that, so please prove me wrong. Anywho, he's one of those people that are just convinced that they are that person, or like their performance is that convincing. Kind of like Ryan Reynolds with Deadpool. They are just, you think of the character in live action format, you're going to think of that actor.
I thought about Green Lantern, but that's besides the point.
You need to get that out of your head. You really need to.
That was a joke, though. That was a joke.
It's finally done. Get shot in the head.
But no, I do. So there's different points in time throughout the course of the film where Venom comes back to Eddie Brock's character, and just, right now, Venom relies too much on Eddie. Eddie relies too much on Venom. That has to be separated in order to turn somebody evil. Because Venom's no longer going to be with Eddie Brock eventually at one point. So I feel the best way to go about it is you kill Anne, and you have to kill Eddie. And Dan, too. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah.
Dan actually stepped it up this. And you asked the same question. I don't know if they recasted him. I have no idea.
Yeah, okay, someone in the audience, please find this out, because we're going to probably forget.
And we're too lazy to look it up, but go ahead.
Yeah, that too. Dan looks different. I am not... Either he is on one heck of a health streak, or he is recasted, okay? Like, I cannot determine it. I leaned over to Donnie in the theaters, and I'm like, is that the same guy? I don't know. I really don't know. And I had that moment with Anne where I was like, is that the same girl? And I was like, yeah, it is. I'm like, I just didn't remember. Even though we watched it pretty recently, like a couple months back. So it's still kind of fresh in our mind. But Dan truly looks different. So if it's the actor, if you're on a health streak or if you're going through health issues, I hope you're doing all right. And if you're doing amazing, keep it up. Like, honestly, if you're someone else, I would love to get to know you.
Well, what was it? It was after the first Iron Man. They recasted
Brody.
Yeah.
I don't remember his actual name. I can't tell you there.
But like, that's a bigger recast than what Dan
That's a
is.
huge. And they handled it perfectly.
And they got away with it.
And they handled it perfectly.
Again, I'm not too worried. I actually didn't remember what Dan really looked like because he was such a side character in the first one.
He was.
So that's half the problem.
And that's probably why we're having a hard time with that. Like,
he was like in three scenes.
Yet you looked at him though, and you're like, is that the same guy? Like, were you thinking that when he came on screen, or no? Was I only one thinking?
I didn't know what he looked like, so I couldn't say.
I was just like, that guy looks different. That's all.
You know what? The sad part is he's probably a very well-known actor, and we just dissed him.
I know, right? And now he's looking at this. He's like, all right, get someone on this. We're gonna destroy this podcast.
That's a problem. But you know what's more of a problem? The fact that we can't spill
Russian hackers.
Yeah. But until YouTube took us down for that too.
Did they? Oh my God.
Probably. But so we can't. There's not much that we can go off of yet that's non-spoiler. So we're going to tune over to spoilers here very, very quickly, which is like right now. So leading into this film, there's not too many of us that thought, we imagined, but we never would have thought that we'd see Spider-Man on screen in the Venom film. Like a lot of us thought like, oh, okay, there's possibility. But the legal terms with Marvel, with Sony, who knew what was going to happen? The end credit scene though, or technically mid-credit, whatever you want to call it, Spider-Man returned. Now, we have a lot of questions around the Spider-Man returning. Hummel, obviously, is going to give you his statement here about what Spider-Man returning means. But I'm going to start off by saying it's going back to Sony. I'm just going to straight up say it, and I don't really care. I will eat crow for it if it doesn't happen.
Eat crow.
But that's an old terminology, by the way.
Back in my day.
But yeah, so I just don't see. So they could re-up in the future. But right now, Marvel has their, and this is what I'm saying, based off what we know from Marvel, what we don't know from Marvel. What we know is that Marvel has their next 5 years laid out with no Spider-Man movie yet. Like, other than the one that's coming out right now. No Way Home. So, and the last of the contract comes up that we know. I think that Spider-Man comes back into the Spider-Verse in Sony. And I also have a theory, and I know we could capitalize on this a little bit later. This is getting a little bit out of hand even by me talking, but No Way Home represents something to me. So, you got this multiverse going on. Okay, with Doctor Strange. I told you, and I was like, I will stand by this. I do not think I'm wrong. A lot of people are talking about, oh, well, Spider-Man's going to come back out of the multiverse, and, back in the Marvel, Doctor Strange is going to fix everything at the end of the film. I think we're about to see an Empire Strikes Back. I think that Spider-Man gets stuck in the Spider-Verse, the multiverse, gets transported back to Sony. Doctor Strange, then, in the Multiverse Madness, is trying to pull him out. But maybe he's unsuccessful. Maybe he's successful at the end, but then we see his character when he's needed, like probably 6-7 years down the line for Marvel. So that's my little theory on that. I don't know what I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
So yeah, this is the ongoing debate over here. But
over here, it's not even like a debate online right now. It's just a debate.
No, it really is just between us, which is pretty awesome. But so I do want to take a step back before I just want to break down that scene if you haven't watched it. But again, this is assuming you haven't watched it, and if you have watched it, whatever at this point. But I believe it's a cameo of sort of on-screen cameo, or is that because it's actually I have a good way to describe it. Take the Stan Lee cameos that are like the picture of him, and that's so
it's an older shot footage.
Yes,
it's from the last Spider-Man film,
and there's a lot of debates going on about if it's a breaking news as in. So let me before I even get into that, let me just backpedal a little more. So
say the whole scene.
The scene is Venom. Well, Venom and Eddie Brock in the hotel, really run down. It's not the best conditions. And they're talking about how the hive mind and all this knowledge, and they're just about to tease us with the symbiote background and the lore. And I'm over here like, yes! And then it switches. And all of a sudden, it before he says anything, the room shakes and does weird stuff. And the room gets colorful, it gets brighter, the ceiling fan goes from this old brown looking color that's barely moving to a nice clean white. And on the TV screen, it shows J. Jonah Jameson. Actually, if you watch now the Way Home stuff is getting to me. Far From Home, the end scene of Peter Parker as Spider-Man, if you see that, that's it's exactly that scene. that last bit that reveals who he is to the world, Public Enemy #1. And it's on the TV, and it shows Peter Parker, Tom Holland, split down the mask, Spider-Man, Tom Holland, and he's on the screen. Venom instantly transforms and licks the screen, and they basically are like, they want to eat the guy. Like, they want him. And that's basically that scene, and then it kind of cuts away. Nothing was said. So kind of like in MCU movies, they have those Spider-Man will return, like Homecoming. Because actually, Homecoming is a good example here, because they needed something for the audience. And this is kind of like one of my things going into this, but they needed something for the audience to understand what was going on. Spider-Man will return. That's what they did, so that way they could have him in following movies. In this movie, they did not. At the end of Venom 2, they did not have a message of any kind. They just let it go blank, which kind of makes you question, like, okay, now our audience is confused, and now we're up in the air, and this can mean anything. Genius move. At the same time, there's going to be that audience confusion, which is kind of my other worry. But as far as that goes, I just want to say real quick, going back to that Venom talk about how Venom 2 is filler. This is why it's unfortunately filler. Venom 2 is a great movie, and you will even say that, and we'll both sit here and praise it. At the end of the day, though, that post-credit scene, and honestly, it might be the best post-credit scene ever. I'm going to be honest. I don't know of one that could top it off the top of my head, but it completely changes everything, and just everything that happened in that movie. You're going to probably bring up that post-credit scene before you bring up the movie at this rate, unless you're specifically talking about the movie itself and what happened in it. It's a good thing, but it's unfortunate at the same time. But that's why that movie's filler, and it's honestly a good movie. But that's that. So going back to the actual argument here, debate, debacle, I think at this point, if they were to go that route of the Spider-Verse and sharing, well, I'm taking custody of my kid back of Spider-Man, and we're going to do the Spider-Verse, I think the audience confusion is going to be out of this world, because there's going to be people like us that understand it, but the people that go see MCU movies is a much larger crowd, and that is what Venom might have just turned that into as well with this newest release, because like you were saying, the younger crowd and everything, it might even be some older folks sprinkled in there, which is great. I personally know of someone he's in his 50s. He's actually getting close to retirement. And he's a huge MCU guy. And he loves Venom. So it's a good example there, but he doesn't know everything. He doesn't know all these connections and whatnot. With that being said, there's going to be a huge audience factor. How do we not confuse? How do we not make someone completely lost of what's going on? Like, I'm confused. Isn't Spider-Man a part of the MCU? Isn't he a part? He's in this universe? How are their universes? How are they connected? They're not connected. I don't what? Like, that's the issue we're falling into, and that's what I'm personally worried about, that I actually didn't really talk to you about, and I'm glad I saved it.
There's only one person that has all the power here, though. Now, remember, audience, I want you to look at me. There's only one person that has the power here to decide if Venom stays in, or if Venom / Spider-Man stays in the Spider-Verse with Sony, or stays in the MCU, even though there's no contract. There's only one person that has the power. And I just thought of this. It's Tom Holland. Everything that Sony has built right now, especially showing that end credit scene, and it doesn't change my decision. Spider-Man still come back to Spider-Verse. Sony's going to have him for the next 5 years at least with his own. I think we'll see. I think Venom 3 will be Spider-Man versus Venom. I think they're going to do like a Batman Superman, but a lot better because we know that. So, I mean, hopefully, if you do a Spider-Man versus Venom and it's worse than Batman versus Superman, you guys are done. Like that's the last chance you're going to ever have. So sign it away then afterwards. You might as well just sell your product to Marvel if you do something worse than that. But Tom Holland, okay, has all the power because Sony set this up to the point where they're like, okay, Tom Holland's coming back. I don't know what Tom Holland has on contract right now. I don't know if he's signed on to do more films. So Tom Holland could just be like, find yourself a new Spider-Man.
I do have one comment about the Tom Holland case here, specifically about his contracts and everything. I brought this up to you before. I really should have looked it up, and that's on me, but it is reported that he is supposed to be in Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness. It's not actually called Doctor Strange 2, it's Doctorverse. Doctorverse. No, it's Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Wanda's supposed to be in it. Spider-Man's supposed to be in it. Doctor Strange, obviously. And it's supposed to be, it's meant to be more of a horror movie with Sam Raimi directing it. And with all that being said, unless those are heavily heavily caked rumors or.
So I'm still going to go with what I told you. The fans are going to hear this for the first time. I still think it's an Empire Strikes Back ending. I think Spider-Man gets stuck. I think
really
Spider-Man gets stuck in the multiverse. I think Doctor Strange, knowing that he messed up, bails him out with Wanda, and they go in and get him. But when you do that, you still don't have a Spider-Man film lined up for another 5 years with Marvel. So you can move that aside. But let's think about this. The last time time travel / multiverses were mixed was the quantum realm. What happens when you go in the quantum realm?
Time accelerates.
Time moves differently.
Yeah.
So within that amount of time, we could have a Venom 3 movie. And then when he pulls him out of the multiverse, that all could happen. That all could happen within 5 years. He could be stuck there. Now the problem is, and this is what will be interesting, and stems off a different theory left and right. So Marvel, I don't, if Spider-Man gets stuck in the multiverse, like my theory transpires, he's not going to have his Mary Jane, like MJ is not going to be there. Okay, MJ is not going to be there. That's going to break his heart, which leads kind of to a Venom area because now you got Spider-Man, which remember when Tobey Maguire put on the suit, even though Venom was there, it made him turn a little bit evil.
You are just like busting open many different points of the conversation.
Think about this,
I let it stay so.
But think about this. I mean, I don't think I'm wrong, but think about this. So it turns him a little bit eviler, and in order to get the new Sony, which Sony is going hard PG-13 with this, but they should make rated Rs. I want to see a rated R Spider-Man versus Venom. Because that'll be interesting. But when they pull Peter back out of the multiverse to connect your theory, because I know you're going to defend yourself here real quick, he doesn't. No, we have the Tobey Maguire, Holland debate between Spider-Man. Hold on. But he has this, and you're not wrong with your thinking about how you like the maturity that Tobey Maguire brought. Yes. You think that obviously that he's not
campy movies, but
but you think that Tom Holland's character has kind of been like. Just patted on the back and like, okay, participation trophy, moving along the line. But maybe getting him stuck away from MJ, getting him stuck in the multiverse, fighting Venom, maybe that turns him into a grown-up Peter by the time we see him 5 years later in the MCU.
That's one grown Peter.
There's one grown Peter.
All right, so now that I just killed our host. So, no, I mean, I thought about it some more when you first pitched that. And I need to throw this out there. I need the audience to... Oh, no, now I'm laughing at you.
No, you're laughing at grown Peter. You're laughing at me.
So, this is one thing that I truthfully, like... I don't see Tom Holland. And I'm going to keep on drawing this into people. I don't see Tom Holland as that... Well, I don't want to say actor. He's a great actor. It's not him. It's Tom Actors. Wow, I'm doing that a lot. Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I don't see him in a serious tone. Endgame, he was more of a supporting main character. Infinity War, more of a supporting main character. He's never... I can't see him... I can't see Venom just eating someone in front of him being like, you shouldn't have done that. I don't see him... Like, what remark are you going to make? Like, what are you going to say? Like, if it were like Tobey Maguire, you would fall back on a classic. No! Andrew Garfield would be... And I know I'm throwing this out there, but... he would resort to like probably just blitzing him and trying to hit him, as evidence, like he's in the first movie, he was trying to get revenge and everything.
But this will make him grow up like he needs to, though.
Tom Holland
watching Venom eat somebody's head off in front of him is maybe what Spider-Man
needs. He really does need to grow up because and this is one thing that we've agreed on is that, and this is where we might see a divide here. I don't know how many people watch this. I think you said around 50 or something, but I'm sure it's going to branch out and we're going to get other people involved with this, but I do want to say that Tom Holland's, or I guess your argument was he is the most comic accurate Spider-Man, and I originally disagreed with, and I thought about it, and I came back and said he's the most fluid. And what I mean by fluid is that name one thing from the comics and ask yourself, is it that far-fetched? Can you see it in the MCU? My answer is I don't think it's, with the exception of the extremely outlandish things, because there are some things out there, I'm going to say I do see it happening. I can see it. For example, the Scarlet Spider, the suit he wore in Far From Home, that one he like made up or whatever, the black and gold one, which I believe is in No Way Home, and even the techno suit, or his default suit that he has now that's compression or whatever, like that one. Like, those things are all ideas. Even the taser, I think he's even had those, right? The web shooters that were tasered in a movie, I think. Yeah, so he's had those too. Like, all these ideas are already thrown in there, and we've gotten him in 3 solo movies and 3, well...
2, 3 cameos, yeah.
I was just going to say 1 Civil War and 2 Avengers movies.
I guess he was more in...
He was there for a fight scene and something else.
He was more there, I believe, in... Well, let me think about this. Obviously, Endgame, he wasn't there a lot. He was there at the final battle.
I would argue that's a cameo.
Yeah, that's
more
a cameo.
Than anything. But
Civil War, I don't think
he was.
I was going to label that as a cameo, but then they actually meet his aunt even, and his aunt's actually important for like a scene and a half. So if she's important for a scene and a half, I guess he's technically a character.
Yeah, and that's I actually didn't realize that about Civil War either, is that he's actually a character in that. I would strongly argue that now.
But either way, like 5-6 movies, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but okay. So long story short, he's in it for that 3 solo, so 1 trilogy. I'm gonna default back to that because he made appearances, whatever. That's a new thing today, and we've seen that much. We've seen that many different things. We've seen him even have his mature moment in Far From Home where he had to step up and make his own suit. To me, that was a positive. I looked at that and said, thank you. Because my issue with Spider-Man in the current MCU state is that he is very much, like you said, like participate, here's your trophy. Thor will do this. Tony Stark will do it, like give you everything. He'll even wipe your butt if you let him. Like, honestly, like it's that bad in my mind. But No Way Home coming up is the Sinister Six, heavily rumored and already shown. This is where Donnie disagrees, but it's already shown. If you go back in that trailer, you could see Electro, you could see Sandman, and I'm not saying you see them physically. I'm saying you see the lightning, you see the sandstorm, you see Doc Ock, you see the Green Goblin's bomb, and that leaves the last 2. And those 2, I don't know personally. I'm not gonna argue. I did argue.
I'm just utterly confused though, because listen, I'm not a big even though there's a lot of things I know about comics and like the characters and stuff, I don't know too much about the founding of the Sinister Six. Like, I don't understand the Sinister Sinister
Now
Six.
you're doing it too.
Oh my goodness, that is hard. Say that about 5 times.
The Sinister Six, yeah.
But I listened to somebody talk about comics the other day about the Sinister Six, and they mentioned like 10 people. I was like, hold on.
They do.
But I'm over here like, is it really the Sinister Six? It makes sense. So when you label all these people, it's like, well, no kidding, that's a villain. So what, are all Spider-Man's villains now Sinister Sixes? Or what?
No,
what is going on here?
Throughout comics, obviously, they've rotated out people and changed it and made different
And then
teams.
I heard it was started by Doc Ock, and then I heard it was started by somebody else. And then there's a theory out there, which I don't know if you guys ever heard this theory before, but apparently there's another character, like apparently founded the Sinister Six in one of these comics. I don't know. But either way, he was waiting for Doctor Strange to make the spell, the cast, and he actually brought everybody to the same timeline.
Oh my god.
And I'm over here like, I had no idea. But my thing is, and I know you're going to disagree with me. I think you do disagree with me. But you are not going to see Venom in Spider-Man No Way Home.
That's where it gets
You're not going to see him.
So the reason why he says that is because I originally said he's in the MCU. Because that post-credit scene makes you truly believe that. But again, going back to Marvel, what they did, and this is something I thought of after our last conversation about this, they provided that sentence, that way the audience knew. We don't know. No one knows. It's heavily implied that he's within the MCU, but that could be our interpretation. Going back to that scene, as you dissect it, it does breaking news as if it's from the end of Far From Home. However, it's past that point. If Venom gets transported there, like, think about it. If Venom gets transported there, it would have been from something in No Way Home, correct? Unless it's something from the Loki series, but it's currently not confirmed. We truthfully don't know. Even if you have watched Loki, it would make sense to go off that, and basically what happens there is rules are broken across the multiverses, and it makes it so that intertwined universes can exist, and meshing and mix-hap, and introduce a villain. Really good show. You should really go watch that. But at the end of the day, it still leaves the question of what transported Venom there, because are we really going to assume that it was Doctor Strange's spell? Because I wanted to, but I thought about it. It's just a forget-me spell. You even see in the trailer. Spider-Man tampered with it, caused issues, but we're also seeing these different, not dimensions, but I mean, you could say that, but universal villains coming in, universe's villains coming in, and we're seeing all these different characters make a return that have no connection to Tom Holland, which is also another issue I have, that Donnie doesn't seem to have an issue with, because the Sinister Six is meant to be a very personable, I want to kill Spider-Man because I don't like him kind of group. not because he always stops being kind of Groot, but Tom Holland doesn't have that personal connection with the exception of Mysterio and Vulture, and no one else really.
There's also a rumor that Mysterio is still alive.
I don't understand how he.
Which he
it
could
would
also
be great in character.
He could
if
be the
did.
person that technically combined the timelines too, if he really wanted to. I don't know if that's possible, but
I don't know. But as far as that all goes, like what I'm sticking to now with the whole Venom thing is, I think. So this is what's going to lead to our segue about No Way Home, because we have some mixed opinions here, but I think Deadpool is going to be in the MCU, whether it's a chapter, meaning a movie within that MCU storyline, or he's going to be making an appearance. I bet my money on No Way Home, him taking place, or him being in there, and I think that's what led the doors to us saying about the post-credit scene, and that's what gets to our conversation about, do we consider a post-credit scene a part of the actual movie, which for Venom 2 we did, because at the end of the day that completely transports the character and changes everything, because the end credits, or the final scene leads beautifully, in my mind, to the post-credit scene. I think it did a good job there. But that's one thing I want to ask the audience here. Do you consider a post-credit scene to be a part of the movie? And if so, why? Because I think we can all agree that Venom 2 will be, but I don't think everyone will agree on Venom 1, for example. And if you don't remember what that was him visiting Cletus Cassidy, and he met him in the jail cell, and he said, "Let there be carnage." Spoiler alert if you didn't know that. Which would be really ironic.
I mean, that was 3 years ago.
Yeah, but it'd be really funny, though, if someone's like, that one person's like, oh, anywho. Donnie brought this up, and I'll let Donnie take over here, but he brought up a good point, and he could share it about that one.
Well, I always picture end credit scenes as not the conclusion to the movie we're watching. I always consider it the start to the next film. And in this case, I mean, I'll even argue the same thing for at the end of Venom 1. You know, he goes in, sets us up for the next film. I consider like they're talking. So at the start of the second one, where he like has to meet with him again, we're familiar with him,
and that carries over. Like
it carries over. It's almost
in the beginning of the first.
It's almost like a few days later that it carries over.
The beginning of the second film, he meets up with him the second time, and it carries that over. In my mind, they kind of fumbled there, but at the same time, it makes sense. And I'm like, whatever, you didn't fumble, you did good. But continue.
I mean, and then this one where you see Peter Parker at the end here, that is going to have something to do, obviously, with the next time we see Venom. But I'm going to take that as it's the start of the next film, at setting us up for the next film. Okay. Which obviously everything sets us up, but like, we get a look into how Venom is. And to me, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, Venom licked the screen of Tom Holland, as Spider-Man, simply because like he was interested in this guy, like in the Spider. He was more interested in this guy in the spider suit. I think it's more like all of a sudden he got it clicked in because his other symbiote in the universe fought Spider-Man or did fight Spider-Man or whatever, and it was just like
whispered in his ear, yeah.
And it was like,
and that would make sense.
There's all that rage of evil, maybe take over him. Maybe that's what you need. And my theory was, which we couldn't talk about this earlier, so we got to rewind a little bit. When we talked about what could turn Venom, just specifically Venom bad. Because like I said earlier, you can't have Eddie Brock in future Venoms, because eventually Venom takes the form of Spider-Man, gets kicked out of Spider-Man, could possibly die, but then goes to Agent Venom. In order to do that, I think a Batman vs. Superman, which I've referenced before for Venom vs. Spider-Man, where you see, I forget who it was that died, that Superman flew through a building or whatever and they were fighting, and somebody died. I think it was Alfred. Did Alfred die? It was somebody else.
So are you talking about Man of Steel movie? Or
No. This is Spider-Man. This is Batman vs. Superman.
That movie itself.
Yeah. Did you watch that movie?
I did. I'm trying to think.
But remember the opening in Metropolis, or he flies through a building, that building crumbles, and Batman loses. I thought it was Alfred, but then I'm not sure.
It's not Alfred. It's an employee.
He lost somebody. Fans correct me. But like, if Spider-Man trying to find his way back into the MCU, he's obviously not the MCU, but coming back out of the multiverse, trying to find his way back to Doctor Strange. If he fights somebody and it takes out a building with Ann and Dan, say they both get like wrecked in a building, they die, maybe Eddie Brock dies, that would turn Venom into that villain that he needs to be for comic book reference.
The other thing I want to bring up about that scene, because this scene is a lot happened in this one scene, and it doesn't seem like it. Or there's a lot to pick apart. It again, going back to Public Enemy number 1, a common theme between the first and second movie is that they can only eat bad guys that are truly that evil. So when they first see that, and Venom is just constantly hungry, Public Enemy number 1, that's okay. Also, another thing that the symbiotes can do is, well, at least the relationship between Venom and Eddie is that he tells him to, whisper in his ear, he's trying to kill you. He's trying to kill me. I better kill him first. Make him paranoid and whatnot. And we are here to stop you. And so Venom could easily just say, he's Public Enemy number 1. That's we gotta stop him. We gotta kill him. You can eat him at that point. Make sure he stays down.
There's also a theory that going back to the transporting, the end credit scene, mid credit scene where he gets transported, and it is right as he closes his eyes and Venom's I'm about to show you a different universe. Some people, even though you hear Venom's reaction, what was that or whatever, some people believe too that he's actually in that multiverse because he's actually showing him. So how sometimes you're dreaming.
Are you
about
talking about he's the one that made that jump?
Yeah, and that when the light flashed and stuff like that, and it flickered and changed location, he actually jumped into different universes. Venom.
The only thing I disagree with on that.
I disagree with it completely, but I'm just saying.
I know I like that.
It's a theory.
That's with your. And we're going to dissect your.
There's nothing to dissect. I'm right.
We're going to dissect your conversation here in a minute, but
I'm right about it. Dang Hummel.
So, as far as that theory goes, I love it. The issue I have with it is that the guy that what do you do in my room? I don't think Venom can pull that one off. I don't think he could
Well, Tom Hardy or Eddie Brock's there.
Yeah, but I don't think he can.
Here's the question.
But it's a random person. That's my issue.
When you get here, I guess here's the question. I don't know enough about comic books, so again, if you're in the comments, you can help us out. When he transports Eddie Brock to see, say he would have went through with that and transported to see what it was like in a different universe or a different multiverse, and Hardy's character could see for himself. Do you get does Eddie Brock as a character, does the whole body transition with him too? Or is it just the mind? I don't know how that works.
It's just mind.
It's an interesting.
I don't know if he could. I know Venom can make him fake having cancer. I don't know if he can make him fake seeing stuff. So that's, it's pretty impressive if you could do that. So that's quite the feat alone. But I do want to push to talk about No Way Home because that's going back to that concept of Spider-Man versus Venom. If that were to happen, whatever happens at the end of No Way Home is going to determine that. But I keep on thinking about this, and I personally believe if we're heading your route of the Spider-Verse, again, going to Sony's universe and the parent taking back custody of Spider-Man, I personally do feel like, and I think people should think about this one, is that I actually do think that's amazing and would fix all my issues with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I really love the idea. I really want it to happen. I don't necessarily agree with it still, but I still want to go down that rabbit hole. So I do personally think that No Way Home, I think whether it's going to be the first part, third of it is going to be within the MCU, or 2/3 of it is going to be the MCU, but I feel like there is going to be a part of it, it's going to be in the Spider-Verse to help connect that Venom scene in some way.
If we're going to see, and this is the real
it's going to be this movie too. There's not going to be next time.
Here's the big legitimate question. If Tobey Maguire is rumored to be in here, I'm saying the beginning, the first third of the movie is going to be in the MCU.
Andrew Garfield's in it too.
Anyways.
4K, look it up.
If
we got wet blood.
If Tobey Maguire is going to be in this film, the first third, in my opinion, is going to be in the MCU. Then it gets transitioned over to the Sony Spider-Verse. Okay, now possibly it ends in the MCU, but we're gonna either way. There's gonna be that. There's gonna be a few minutes where he's in the Spider-Verse because here's the problem. We know that Sony obviously made the films, which if Tobey Maguire appeared in the film, you guys would argue that he's now in the MCU.
Who, Tobey Maguire?
Yes, you guys would argue that. Okay,
he's making an appearance in it. That's going back to what I say about Venom. So to me, if No Way Home, right? Let's say I'm talking about Venom, looks in the mirror and licks the mirror.
Do you consider then? Okay, because this is the big question.
Because to me, it's a chapter from the MCU.
Well, okay, but then you can consider Iron Man was the first. Well, technically, I guess it was Hulk would be the first MCU film. But now, I don't know what was made first between Hulk or the Spider-Mans 1, 2, or 3. If Tobey Maguire appears in the MCU film and you're like, oh, he's in the MCU, does that mean that the original 1, 2, and 3 Spider-Man were MCU films? No. So Spider-Man.
I didn't think they were.
So then the only way to connect that.
That was weird how we said that at the same time.
The only way to connect that would be by saying, hey, listen, he goes into the Spider-Verse. This is Sony property. It's like it starts off in Marvel, which Marvel did. Let's clarify. Marvel is both, but it starts in Disney's verse, the MCU, goes into the Spider-Verse, could end back in the MCU. But while he's in the Spider-Verse, I take that more as Sony, the Spider-Verse, just overall their collective stuff, not associating themselves to Marvel. Like the whole strand, like there's different timelines. All those timelines connect.
Go watch Loki.
All those timelines connect, but I do not consider, unless for some reason Maguire meets Doctor Strange and Garfield meets Doctor Strange, it comes out of the Spider-Verse, I do not consider them part of the MCU.
So I'm not going to consider. Oh, you're saying as a whole. Okay.
Yeah.
This would be my argument, is that the character is making an appearance within the MCU, and I'm going to stick to the chapter of the MCU, right? So in No Way Home, if he makes an appearance in there, so Tobey Maguire, if he did, at that point, to me, he's making an appearance in the overall, in a chapter of the MCU. To me, he's in the MCU. He was a part of it briefly. Now, what if they were in a different universe and it was in the Spider-Verse? And I say that, I would still consider it he's a part of the MCU, a chapter in the MCU. But if he was in the Spider-Verse, then at that point he wouldn't be in the MCU itself, that universe. And keep in mind too, is that as we're talking about this, notice how the MCU is still called the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's not the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse. Mm-hmm. That's also huge, because what they could be trying to apply is, and this is going back to your argument, is the multiverse outside of what Marvel Cinematic Universe shows is Sony and well, I guess it's only Sony at this point, but Sony, and they're two different universes, and they're going to keep it that way.
Disney owns them all.
Because Sony's next at this rate.
What's the only one?
It is the only one, and that's why they're going to play hardball. Because, and one little fun conversation on a side note here is the Hulk. For a while there, Universal had some say in how the Hulk was portrayed, and there was back and forth on that, and Donnie was saying that basically it never was a thing. And long story short, we ended up finding out that as of 2020, all full rights came back to Marvel, and Donnie says something about licensing, which is different from a character owning rights or something like that.
For the fans I'll put it as simple. The reason why Universal Studios can have all those characters is because of licensing. So they have license to use them at theme parks. What I was trying to argue with Hummel is just because they had the license for the theme parks and they could have had the Hulk smash ride and stuff like that does not mean that they had say over how they crafted the Hulk in the MCU. That's what I was trying to explain.
So we would have had for all the Hulk fans out there, we would have had Planet Hulk already. Okay, I'm just saying Ragnarok teased it, but we would have had it. So
who really wants a Planet?
I do.
Okay, calm down now. Do we really need a Planet Hulk?
Yes.
Do we?
Yes.
We're getting a She-Hulk. Is that not
good
enough?
It's really good. I don't care about She-Hulk, okay? She is just the Hulk.
That's so sexist.
Green, whatever. What do you mean? I mean,
off guard.
She-Hulk, I mean, she's cool, but like I'm sick of seeing Bruce Banner and Hulk going through all these different changes so drastically. I want...
That is one thing. If we look back at Marvel, I don't think they handled the
Hulk
well.
They haven't. That's why I'm telling you, Universal.
So now it's Universal. So now it's Universal's fault that we have a bad Hulk in the MCU. It's not Marvel's fault. So it's not Kevin Feige.
No.
It's Universal.
Well, they're trying to take a different route. Kevin Feige.
Also, I did not like, by the way, I know this is off topic, but I did not like Thor Ragnarok. I was not.
You're like probably the only one, but
I know. I was like, I didn't enjoy it.
I thought it was just different.
It was different, but so was Guardians of the Galaxy.
How about this?
My hate towards that.
How about this? As for Thor movies,
you know what was amazing?
What?
I hate Guardians of the Galaxy with a passion. I love the new James Gunn Suicide Squad. Always beautiful.
That's his style.
But you know what though? It's because it was in the MCU, and this has to do with Disney and like not trying to go over the edge. But like, obviously, they're never gonna make it a Guardians of the Galaxy rated R. But like, I think the reason why I didn't like Guardians of the Galaxy was because it was you needed with James Gunn's humor. You needed that rated R material still for it. and they didn't give it to him, so he had to play down his rated R material, and I think it came out like crap.
I feel like, I mean, I brought up the argument earlier for Venom, so I mean, I feel like that's fair. I do. I haven't seen the movie.
However, Guardians of the Galaxy is a lot worse than Venom. A lot worse.
Venom is exciting to watch.
Listen, and
then Venom you're comparing it to.
well, yeah. Well, no, you just made the idea that like they dumbed it down to PG-13.
Yeah,
I was like, and they did the same thing with
If we're
Suicide
using that
Squad.
logic, I got you. Okay.
But I'm just saying, Suicide Squad was it wasn't
Suicide Squad.
No, it was Guardians of the Galaxy. Excuse me. Guardians of the Galaxy was not as good as Venom. No, when they dumbed it down, Venom still had the upper hand.
Okay. Like now you're talking as far as rating goes, correct? Or are you
I'm just talking about
movie?
genre and movie.
Or movie as a, like movie,
Because
movie,
we both
movie
agree
versus
that,
movie.
We
as a
both
whole.
agree that James Gunn directs good rated R films,
Brightburn.
and we know that Venom was better as a rated R film.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm using kind of that logic.
No, that's fair. I think that's fair. I do. I mean, I personally do like Guardians of the Galaxy, and I will.
You and everybody else, really. I mean, you guys like
most people, because that was the one thing that was different.
9 out of 10 love Guardians of the Galaxy.
Because it was the one movie at the time. Like you got to look back at Phase 2, right? Or I believe, yeah, it was Phase 2. I think the first one was, because then it went Phase 3. But
they were so good in Endgame and Infinity War.
You have to
They were
think
so good, and I just hate their standalones.
You have to think of it this way. At that time, when the first Guardians came out, it was all serious. There wasn't anything goofy or quirky or anything too weird. And then Guardians of the Galaxy dropped, and then after that, like movies like Ant-Man started dropping, and all the people that are like goofy, like the comedy really got driven home.
By the way, fans that don't know, we were in theaters watching this film, and I forget what it was. It was New Ghostbusters. Paul Rudd shows up on screen, and they're like, "Yeah, man!" Paul Rudd will forever. It's like Deadpool. It's like Tom Hardy. Why we keep saying Tom Hardy instead of Eddie Brock? It's because just like Paul Rudd is Ant-Man.
Well, it's that effect. It's so
when you watch Sherlock Holmes with Downey Jr., it's Iron Man.
Anthony Mackie Anthony Mackie. Yeah, that's his name. The guy who plays Falcon. When you look at him, who do you think of first?
I think of Falcon.
Yeah, that's a common issue.
But I really
Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr.
I really don't know how many other movies he was in though. I don't know if I could.
I only know of
name
8
his other
Mile off
films.
the top of my head.
That's what I'm trying to say.
8 Mile, he played in Alter Carbon, which is a TV show, so that's not true.
I'm just saying I don't know. Like, okay, Downey, you can name Mr. What was that one? Dr. Doolittle.
Dr. Doolittle, which was after Endgame, and then there was the Sherlock Holmes
Sherlock Holmes.
movies.
You can name different things. Anthony Mackie, I just can't do that, so it's hard for.
Oh crap! What is that movie I'm thinking of?
I don't know which one you're thinking of.
Oh, it's very unfortunate. It's 2007 movie. It came out right before Iron Man did. It was.
What was the genre? Like, what was it about?
Mystery, probably mystery thriller. I would say drama, maybe mixed in there too. It had Robert Downey. It was one of his first few roles back into acting after he got out of like his whole roller coaster down to the pits.
After they kicked him out, yeah.
Yeah. And he played like more of a minor role. I don't remember why I can't remember this. It's a really good movie, and I know it, and I'm sure someone's screaming at me through the camera. Oh my gosh, what is it?
Well, either way, don't try to think too much. But the point was...
It's a really good movie. Go watch it.
The point was Anthony Mackie. I don't know too many more... I can't name another title of a film he was in, really. So that's,
like I said,
it's hard when... Like, you only picture... Like, okay, so let's use it this way. I don't know if this is a good example either. But Robert Pattinson is Batman. Like, right now.
If we're going to bring him up, you need to talk about how...
Well, I was only
amazing he is.
I was only going to bring him up like if for some odd reason Twilight series didn't hit and nobody knew who Twilight was, people would watch this film and probably be like, "Oh, Robert Pattinson's Batman," because they probably couldn't name other films. Like, not unless you know Water for Elephants, unless you know he just did like The Lighthouse or whatever. Like that,
the White House.
The Lighthouse.
Oh, The Lighthouse. I said The White House. I'm like, no, he's not in that movie.
No, The Lighthouse, not White House Down. Lighthouse.
Yeah, that's how I was thinking. Lighthouse Down.
No, but like unless you know those smaller films, like if you say we existed in a universe where Twilight didn't exist, you would probably know Robert Pattinson as Batman.
So we've talked about this briefly before, right? So we're gonna stay on him for a little bit. It's gonna be a side tangent, but that's it. So Robert Pattinson as an actor, okay. I have always thought the first role that comes to mind is Frederick Diggory.
Frederick Diggory
from
Harry Potter.
Yeah, from Harry Potter, from Goblet of Fire. I've always thought of him as that. Even when I've watched the first Twilight, I think I watched New Moon. Yeah, I did watch New Moon.
But he was so minute in that film. Like, he was almost irrelevant.
What, in Goblet of Fire?
he was only relevant because he sacrificed himself, basically.
And I spoiled it for Donnie, and he just did it for you. So,
I mean, it came out what in like the early.
wait,
2000s?
get this real quick. This is for the audience, okay? Donnie and I were talking about the Harry Potter films, and he was bringing up the Prisoner of Azkaban, and we were talking as if he's watched like the majority of them. He's nearly at the end. And I'm like, oh, cool, Mike. You're at the part where, I think of Diggory because, he's a great character and everything, and he ended up dying, and it was unfortunate. And he's like, oh, spoiler alert, I was about to watch that, like, later tonight. And I'm like, what were the odds of that? Like, that movie is that old, and he hasn't watched it, and it's the one person, the one time I bring it up, that we've never talked about it before. The one time I do, he's going to watch it. I just ruined it for him.
But do I get upset over spoilers like that?
You do. You got upset. You got upset when I looked up the spoilers for Venom.
There's a difference between a film that literally is out now.
Someone can't hype it up for me. I need to know.
To a film 10 years ago.
There's a huge difference there.
No, like this dude, he goes out, he already knows Spider-Man's coming in it before we even walk in the theater. And he's over here like, do you want to know? Do you want to know? Do you want to know? I'm like, no, I don't want to know.
I did not go that hard, okay?
It's like, no, I don't want to know.
He wanted to know, but he waited the whole...
Next time we're going to see a film, I'm just taking your phone for the next few days, and you're not even going to be able to do anything.
I'll have my computer.
No, you won't. You've been stripped. You've been locked in a basement.
Get in the cellar. But Robert Pattinson, real quick, going back to that. So he's very much a person, and there's a YouTube video that I would love for you guys to watch if you love movies. Captain Midnight, he has a video on it. But more or less, he says, quick and easy, is that he's a person who has gone from being labeled as a Twilight guy, Edward Collins, to all these different roles and really breaking away from it. And now when you look at him, you realize he's a talented actor and is on top of his game, and he's now going to be the next Batman, which I think we could all accept. I mean, if someone's really upset and they're really fixated on the Twilight days. But I do look at him, and the first movies that come to mind, I no longer think of Twilight. I think of, again, Harry Potter, Frederick Diggory. I think of The Lighthouse, and I think at this rate it's going to be Batman. But I no longer think of Twilight right away. Well,
here's the thing. I can put my money on this and 100% guarantee his Batman will be better than Ben Affleck's Batman.
You don't like 100%. The Batfleck?
Oh, no.
The Batfleck, whatever
Listen,
you call it.
Ben Affleck, okay? And I understand people like Ben Affleck. Listen, he's been through a lot. There's a lot of things in his life that he's talked about that reaches on emotional level.
I have no idea, but all right.
What was it that
Butterfly.
He did that movie, The Comeback or whatever, the basketball movie.
Okay,
and they said that
I can relate.
He said, because from what I understand is he had a big alcohol addiction.
I did know about that actually.
And then this film dealt with alcohol.
Didn't he also go blind for a little bit? Like in 2002, 2003 when he...
I cannot confirm that. I had to call him up and ask him.
Actually, I was making a joke about Daredevil, him playing as Daredevil. But...
yeah, well, we kind of forget that Daredevil because Daredevil Netflix version.
Wake me up!
Anyways, the problem with Ben Affleck is I admire actors that change up their style.
Yes.
Ben Affleck plays Ben Affleck in every film Ben Affleck
I don't know about that one, but I'll take your word for it.
Go watch him in Batman and then go watch him in Argo.
Batman.
He literally stone face. Not Matt's face.
Yeah, not me.
Inside Matt. The other Matt. Inside joke. No, but like stone face, like I get it. Ben Affleck being like, I'm Batman. Like that. Like, but like that's literally his voice in like every other film he plays. Like I was like, it's like they cast him
without the voice changer.
Without the voice changer.
The deepener or whatever you want to call it.
But no, that's what I'm trying to say. So I know that was my little rant aside. But with that being said, since we just kind of compared two people, let's who's better, Tobey Maguire or Tom Holland?
Votes in now. This is where we should add stream. Bots go.
Bots go.
Yeah. I personally, would you say you said Tom Holland versus? Yeah. So I just want to say real quick, as far as this goes, if there's any Garfield fans out there, I'm sorry. You're just.
Why are we sorry?
Your horse is dead.
Why? Okay. Well, there is really do you want me to use the analogy I used?
You might as well just go over the full thing. You might as well commit to it.
The analogy I used over the phone to Hummel, I was like, listen, Spider-Man 3, like 1 through 3, the Sam Raimi version, were like cult classics to us.
I do agree with how he's going to put it. I really do agree with, if you're going to go with that whole analogy, yes, I really do agree.
They were cult classics growing up. And the thing is, and nobody wanted like 5 years later to go back and rewatch an origin story. And then, Tom Holland's Spider-Man came out in Civil War. and he was thrown back in. We didn't need an origin story, and thank
We
God
knew
they
that
never
was-
went back to the origin story, because then we got something new.
Can you just imagine when Robert Downey Jr.
However,
was so
Andrew
young?
Garfield, I hate to tell you, but you were a rebound. You were a rebound, okay? And listen, everybody's been in this situation. You get in a relationship, you got Tobey Maguire for the first like 5,
First
6
love,
years, first love going on, and then you know what? Things
High
go
school
sour.
sweethearts,
It's over. You go on. It's like, okay, what's the next best option? I got this Garfield. All right, cool. We got Garfield. We got Garfield. And then all of a sudden, it's like, you know what though? I found the other love of my life, and it's Tom Holland. It's like, guess what, Garfield? I just ghosted you. You're not on my phone. I'm not texting you anymore. You're not even on Snapchat. I deleted you
I
off
don't even know who
Instagram.
you are anymore.
You're gone. He's gone.
Sayonara. Yeah.
And then he did Hacksaw Ridge, which good for him though. Listen, Hacksaw.
I don't even
Hacksaw
know.
Ridge
I
was a
stopped
good
paying
one.
attention. I only know him from the Social Network. Okay.
But either way, he was a rebound, and that's
really
kind
was.
and that's kind of how you use Garfield's analogy. That's how I used it. That's how I used it over the phone to you talking about this the other day. I don't know what your takes are. You can give me kind of feedback on that.
What, as far as his Garfield goes?
Yeah, like did I kind of?
I know. I mean, this is where I think we're going to see like pretty much perfectly eye to eye on is that he truthfully is like he fell in that period of the Raimi trilogy. They were supposed, if you didn't know this, not many people did apparently. There was supposed to be a fourth film, and it was canceled. Long story short, is Raimi wanted to do it to make up for Spider-Man 3. It was supposed to release 2011. Sony wanted to do a reboot, and they pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And Raimi's like, I just don't have the energy to fight this anymore. So then he's like, you were going to do your thing anyways, so we'll just cancel it, whatever. End of Sam Raimi's days, unfortunately. Heartbreak everywhere, but whatever. In comes the reboot a year later after the fourth movie that was supposed to come out. So from the eyes of us, we're looking at this and we're like, so we're not getting a fourth movie? No, we are getting a fourth movie. What? Reboot? What? You know, and now it's you're already spoon feeding us. I remember going to see it. I remember everyone's concerned. You're just spoon feeding us an origin story we have already seen. What they tried doing is making it more grittier, or not grittier. I'm sorry, that's not the right word. Tried making it darker, and they tried making it more something to separate itself from that campiness of that Raimi trilogy. And it worked and it didn't, and it ended up failing and blowing up its own face. Because if you go back, and I mentioned it earlier, Spider-Man does it for, like, he suits up and fights crime to get revenge. That's the moral, that's the theme, and that's unfortunate, because Uncle Ben is supposed to be the guy's, like, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. They found a different way to communicate that message, but he ended up dying, and then it became a revenge plot, and then he was like, time to wake up later on and be the good guy. Second film, they went out of their way. They made it a Spider-Man movie, however the damage was dealt. All that being said, he fell into that rebound period, you know. Everyone was kind of like turned off from him for a little bit, the character of Spider-Man, and he came in too quick, too soon, and then Tom Holland came, and now he's completely forgettable. He's in between Raimi trilogy, Tobey Maguire, and Tom Holland. You are that middle person. History is not going to treat you nicely unless he's in No Way Home, and that goes well.
He's still irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
And you know what?
I don't know about
Since he's
that.
down, and listen, this
He is pretty rebounded.
is nothing personal against Garfield. What I said.
We love you, Garfield.
It's the whole point of what I'm trying to say. The analogies and everything that I use was you just weren't in the right place at the right time. You didn't have you don't have
Exactly.
you didn't have the Russo brothers. You didn't have Feige backing you. You also didn't have Sam Raimi. You were in a bad spot.
That's another thing, too.
Now, since you're down, I'm going to kick you even more because the person that voiced Miles Morales is the third best Spider-Man.
Oh, jeez.
Am I wrong?
I don't... That's tough.
Even the people that voiced all the other Spider-Man, even Spider-Man Pig.
You're going far. Now you're digging. You're scraping the bottom of the
That
barrel.
was a joke.
Where's my next
Garfield,
insult?
listen, I love Hacksaw Ridge. I got you. But I am serious about the Miles Morales thing. And I honestly believe
You're just
we're
a
going to
huge
see
Miles fan.
We're going to see Miles Morales, which I never wanted to give that movie a chance, really.
What,
because
Into the
I'm not big
Spider-Verse?
into cartoons. Like
I love beautiful movie.
I kind of grew out of that stage, but
I never did.
But here's the thing, and people are going to yell just because I said it's a stage. It is. But anyways, so I kind of grew out of it by then. But like a friend asked me, they're like, "Let's go see it." I was like, "I don't want to go see another Spider-Man origin story and cartoon version." But that movie was beautiful.
It really
I
was.
love that.
Animation across the board. Beautiful.
And I do have another prediction here for the fans and for the audience. I do feel like we are going to get one of the end credit scenes is going to be Venom. I'm calling 2 end credit scenes, by the way, in the new Spider-Man No Way Home. One of them is going to be Venom, We're going to see something. It's not going to be like, they're not going to be face to face. I think they'll save that for something else. But you'll see some sort of Venom, whether it's in the background on a building where Spider-Man swings by on a web or whatever. But I think you're going to see Miles Morales too. Because now that you set up the multiverse, it's here. The Spider-Verse
I
is coming.
disagree with Miles. I think it's too soon for that, especially when Tom Holland needs to grow more as a character because he's too much of a kid. Really, he's more of a mentor character to Miles. But I guess counter argument or devil's advocate, however you want to put that, is that if that were to occur, maybe that would help Tom Holland grow, and that's what he kind of needs. Again, not Tom Holland himself. He's a great actor. It's just character development for the Spider-Man character, like for Peter Parker, because honestly, he's too young, and it's not in a bad way, but like, I'm talking maturity level wise, like he needs to go through more. And actually, that was Donnie's argument the other day about how.
Well, okay, he's more relatable. Okay, let me use the analogy I used for you when I talked about Tobey Maguire's, and because you're like, well, Tobey Maguire was there, they didn't like they threw him into the mix. It's like, but they're like giving participation trophies to Tom Holland. Here's the thing. I like Tom Holland's character better, not only because I feel like he has better writers and a creative director with...
And I agree with you on that one completely. Like, that's one I'm not even going to touch.
I like that they're fleshing out, because think about this. When you watch... And I was a big Teen Wolf fan growing up. I don't think you ever watched the series or whatever.
I never did. I want to watch that movie.
It talks about... Well, I'm the series...
You're talking about, yeah, I know, two separate.
The series came out in 2011, so that was my freshman year of high school. And it centers around high schoolers, okay? So we're in a generation, like people growing up with Spider-Man right now, probably were in like the middle school when Tom Holland got into Civil War, and now some of them are graduating high school at this point. And it's relatable. So by taking your time and going from Spider-Man, he's dealing with his first love, he's dealing with being in high school, he dealt with people, or he himself disappeared for 5 years. Coincidentally, so did his friends at the same time too, but he's repeating high school.
That was, yeah.
You know, it's relatable. So yeah, they're dragging it out, but they're making it more relatable. And it's like watching Star Wars. For people that don't understand, Star Wars 1 through 6, we're not counting the Disney stuff. Star Wars 1 through 6, Phantom Menace to Return of the Jedi. So it's hard and I asked you the other day, I was like, could you put everything from Phantom Menace to Return of the Jedi? Could you squeeze them into 3 films?
And I think my answer was it wouldn't be done well, so no.
Yes, at least Vader's storyline, because let's be honest, even though people like Luke and I love Luke, it is Vader's story. It's Anakin going into Vader.
It is.
So,
it very much is.
You can't show the rising action, the climax, and the falling action within the 3 films spread across 40 years for him. Or 50 or 60. I don't know how old Vader was when he passed away. But anyways, you can't show that. But they did that. They did that for Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. They threw all that together, and it was Spider-Man 3 was the outcome of throwing everything together.
Yeah, and that was, if you don't know that was.
But Tom Holland's character, you're watching him grow up. You're watching him go through and become the Spider-Man that he's meant to be. Which I don't care if it's 10 years later, 10 films later. He's eventually going to get there, which is why I like the comic book version of him, and that's why I feel Tom Holland's the better.
And after talking about this multiple times, I'm a huge Tobey Maguire fanboy, and I'll throw it out there. But I'm also willing to accept certain things about, like again, Andrew Garfield, if he did something right, I'll gladly own up to that and say like, hey, but unfortunately, you're an example right here. But Tom Holland, though, I say he's very fluid. He's a very fluid character. A lot of things can happen with him. I do agree with the comic book accurate, because that is true. Because even if you go back to if you go back to Toby, he's got the web shooters in his wrists. He doesn't have anything crazy, no technology. I was always a fan of that. A lot of people weren't, and that's one of those things. It's personal preference. I grew up watching those films. Nostalgia. I'm sure if I were to go back and watch those movies, I'd pick them apart, even though I would love them regardless. But Tom Holland has a superior team backing him. He's in a power play position. Like, he could just seriously throw some Hail Marys at this point and probably make it work, just because of what's happening around him, as well as the fact that if that is the plan for him to go through this slow growth, and for him to become the Spider-Man, that solo-friendly hero like that, which it very well could be, because whatever traumatizing event occurs to him later on might make him not want to work with people, and we might see a death of a character. Who knows? Especially if there's a Venom movie of some kind.
This is going to get morbid real quick, but I would love, and I'm sorry to interrupt, keep that thought.
Go ahead.
I would love to see them jump through the Spider-Verse and every time he jumps from Spider-Verse to Spider-Verse, from timeline, like he goes in from Tobey Maguire's timeline to Andrew Garfield's Miles Morales. I would love to see Uncle Ben die each time.
Oh no!
There's like 3 Uncle Ben deaths in the middle of the.
Only Uncle Ben stays dead in the comics, folks. That's it. So, and he honestly, it's the truth. But
that'd be fantastic. That'd be a great.
It'd be like almost like Fantastic Four. But oh boy, like that movie.
The 2 originals I thought were really good. Fans were split on the original Fantastic Fours, but nobody split on the new Fantastic Four.
That's why the new ones. Michael B. Jordan was in that, right?
Yeah, Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, that's like that. The only good thing about that movie was Michael B. Jordan.
He still wasn't that good in it. I'm sorry.
No. I'm not even. I'm saying it doesn't even have to be his acting performance. I'm talking about the fact that he was in it, and that was because that's what led to him getting the role in Black Panther.
I don't think that led to him getting the role.
No, like that was like one of the things they looked at and they were like...
That almost lost him the role. I hope he fired his agent after that. Oh, no. After an agent gets you that type of film for the Fantastic Four, I'm hoping he fired his agent. You're fired.
You're fired.
No, I'm kind of hoping that he did, just for the simple sake of like, that is a film. There's certain actors that can rebound from bad films. Like Samuel L. Jackson, Snakes on a Plane. He can rebound, But there's certain actors that don't rebound from bad films.
I mean, Ryan Reynolds almost didn't.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
It took him years.
There's certain actors that do not. So if you get a high-end role and you hit and miss,
it hurts. Entertainment's like that, though. That's how that life is.
And for everybody else watching, if you are living out your dream, I hope you live it out to the fullest extent and don't ever give up. With that being said, once you mess up...
Smash that subscribe button!
Once you messed up, you messed up. And you know what? I understand that because, listen, I'm a director. I do my own films. I write my own content. There could be one day where I could get a big opportunity to direct, like, let me say, Treasure Planet. We talked about this. I want to direct Treasure Planet. If Disney gave me one right to one property, I'd be like, yeah, Treasure Planet. Let's do it. Problem, though. If I botch that up, probably not getting another director's gig for, like, another 10 years. Like, so you got to understand... Doors open, doors close. Just don't wait too long. Take as many shots as you can, but if you miss, just don't miss hard.
Unless you're Kathleen Kennedy.
You know what, though? I don't want to go on the... No, I'm not even doing it. Nope, not going on the Kathleen Kennedy rant. You've been around so many gifted storytellers between George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, and you've helped produce those films, and you give us that crap. That's all I got to say.
Wet pile of crap.
Filoni, where are you? We need you.
The Filoniverse. I really hope that's going to be a thing. But yeah, I mean, as far as like the whole Spider-Man part goes, like having that slow growth and that team behind him, I do think we're going to see this is the best iteration of Spider-Man that we're ever going to see. Currently, I still do believe that Tobey Maguire is better in my eyes. But if this plan comes to fruition, whatever this may be. And again, this could be all like thrown together and it's just perfectly like the perfect storm, like you've said. It's just perfectly playing out. First of all, that happens. Holy cow, what a time to be alive. Because that's amazing in terms of film history. But if it does happen, then Tom Holland, hands down, will be the best Spider-Man we'll ever see live action format. Animated, it's a different story, but I'm serious right now. Like, you really got to take a look at this and just really think about what we've seen so far and what we're going to see.
Nobody's talking about this either. Maybe. The theory out there, maybe. I'm just creating this. I've not heard this before, but maybe, maybe they're just bringing Tobey Maguire back so that he can make another trilogy. They're going to kill Tom Holland Spider-Man off and be like, oh, Spider-Man is...
I actually wouldn't be okay with that, though.
It's a big joke, but I'm just making
No, I know, but like...
It's a way to bring him back.
If they were to do any sort of... Because like at the end of the day, you can't overwhelm your audience. I feel like we're desperately like trying to avoid that right now. It's like, just imagine a train, or no, actually just imagine a train coming and then a car like coming trying to slam on the brakes before they go over the tracks or like trying to floor over it.
Let's do closing arguments here, okay?
Okay.
Let me start with what I think is going to go down between Spider-Man's future and the next films, including Venom or whatever.
I really want Spider-Verse to happen.
Well, Spider-Verse is happening. I mean, like Tom Holland going and getting lost. I really do want that. I still don't think that's going to happen. I say he gets lost. Doctor Strange brings him back, but not at the end of this film. I think he'll get brought back in Multiverse of Madness when that comes out. So that is my early prediction. Number 2, it'll help him grow. Number 3, we will not be seeing Venom, I don't think, in the next, unless it's an end credit scene for No Way Home. I'm going to still put money on Miles Morales. I think that's semi of a safe bet.
I have
because
to
you're
ask
setting
you.
up. Well, here's the thing too. Think about it. They're coming out with a new Spider-Man game for the PlayStation 5. They've already announced that Venom's in it. So there's always you if you want to draw a conclusion.
That's like a different universe altogether.
Yeah, but Miles Morales is in it, I heard.
Yeah, well, he's got his own.
So-
he's got his own. He was in.
No. Yeah, but
He was in
why?
the first one. Wasn't
If
he?
you're going to market to your audience,
Also, their Wolverine
I
game's
would-
coming out.
I did not hear about that, but
They're
I'm
working
excited
on
now.
it.
So
They got the
But-
flip and they got the.
So
Or like-
what I'm trying to say though is I think that I'm going to put a safe bet on being a post credit scene for that.
Okay, I'm done.
It's a safe bet to put it. I think it's a safer bet to put. No, it's a risky bet, but I think it's a semi safe bet that we will be seeing Miles Morales at some point.
I mean, it's. I'll put it this way: it's definitely fair to throw that out there because it's not far fetched. Like it's not like if you were to throw out like. Oh boy, let me think real quick. Who's a really
Let's say Gwen Stacy. Just do somebody's love interest.
Actually, you know, just do Spider Gwen. Spider Gwen's like Gwen if she were Spider Man. If you threw that out there, I'd be like, dude, you're not. It's not. I want that to happen.
You'll have Miles Morales show up before she will.
Yeah, and I want her.
Spider Pig.
Really,
You're not going to see Spider Pig at this point.
Yeah, that's The Simpsons, but yeah.
Now, if that happens, I mean, I will go.
Although Spider Pig's also a thing in general.
It is.
He did show up in technically he showed up in Simpsons before everyone. Now they made a reference, but
those are my early predictions. I just and this is one thing too, and I will let you take the rest of the time for this podcast. But everybody's getting geared up, saying, "Okay, well, you know, Doc Ock's going to have a big role. You know, Electro's going to have a big role. Goblin's going to have a big role. Let's pump the brakes a little bit." There's a lot of characters going on. There's a lot of timelines that are going to happen. Again, we talked about it. You and me think that the MCU, Peter's going to be in the MCU for the first third of the film. Doctor Strange is going to do the spell. He'll get sent in the Spider-Verse. I think he ends up in the Spider-Verse. But while he's in Spider-Verse, so say the first third of the film is 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, relevant.
Probably.
Throughout the next, let's say it's a 120-minute production or whatever. Without the next 100 minutes, and they got to decipher, it's going to be a little bit less than that. Let's say with the next 90 minutes, you're not going to be able to flesh out Doc Ock's role. I think Doc Ock gets like a good 10 minutes. I think Electro gets a good 10 minutes. I think all these other villains get a good 10 minutes. Goblin gets a good 10 minutes. And then it kind of wraps up and does its little ending for the last like 20 minutes. I don't think they're going to be all on screen at the same time. Does that make sense? I think that they're going to jump from situation to situation to situation. Because if you notice, even when, and this is kind of in the trailer, but kind of maybe I'm mistaken in the trailer. They don't ever seem to be at the same place. Goblin doesn't seem to be at the same place.
Goblin and Doc Ock are on the same highway though that Spider-Man's on.
Or is it just a highway?
Life is a highway.
But if
I want to ride all night long.
Here's the thing. Unless it's, and everybody talks about the laugh. Who's the Goblin?
Willem Dafoe.
Dafoe. Why can't it be James Franco's Goblin? Because in order to have Doc Ock,
should.
No, it has to be because they have Doc Ock on the bridge.
Well, he's dead though.
Well, Defoe's already been dead at this point.
Yes,
if it's in Maguire's universe,
it doesn't matter.
Do you see what I'm saying though?
It could be a different version.
So
Yeah, I do.
I think it's Franco's version, and nobody's talking about that
Franco
either.
got gypped, by the way.
He did, but I'm saying nobody's
Played the
talking about
character,
that.
not the.
So if they're in the same spot at the same time, it has to be those two characters because Doc Ock wasn't actually Doc Ock until the second one.
But keep in mind, he's also not in control. Because if you
But he wasn't created until the second one.
Why?
Doc
Oh yeah,
Ock.
why are you? It doesn't matter though. Like it still pulled people at different times and points.
You could, but I think it would make sense for Tobey Maguire if Tobey Maguire was in that scene like we're all saying he is. It has to be James Franco's Goblin, and it has to be Doc Ock. But I think they're in two separate spots, so
I don't
it's
think
not gonna matter.
I don't think it's just. I think they're in the same place, but I think it's William Dafoe's laugh.
And where are they traveling on that train?
What?
Nobody's talking about the train in the trailer.
That's what I'm trying to figure out because
Where do you think they're going on the train?
to Hogwarts. Duh.
Hogwarts.
Yeah.
9.5.
Throw the Harry Potter references out there.
But nobody's talking about that part. That makes me question that there's going to be a little bit more in the MCU than I think there will be. But I still, final prediction, Spider-Man stays in the Spider-Verse for Sony.
I really want that to happen. I just don't think it will.
And then he gets reverted back
That's
to
why I'm
Marvel
still
for another
arguing
contract
against
in
it.
the future. Doctor Strange figures it out in Multiverse Madness, and there's my prediction. Go ahead, Hummel. Finish it out.
what as far as like what I think the outcome's going to be here.
Yep. Give us your final take.
So I just think that. Okay, so I really do feel this way. I feel like there's going to be the Sinister Six. I feel like it's. I did say in the beginning that Venom was going to be in it. I realize now that there's no way they could have fit that in with filming time, and that would make no sense. And if they somehow got him in there, whoa. That's why I think it's going to be a post-credit scene at best. But as far as I go, we already have 4 villains. Okay, 4 villains already, signs of them being in there. And there's a figure in dark that we can't really identify that either looks like the Lizard, or people have said maybe like Venom, but again, I don't think it's Venom, so I think I'm going to go with the Lizard at that point, which would make sense because you could show representation from Andrew Garfield, again, from The Amazing Spider-Man. And the last person would more than likely be Mysterio, Vulture, or Scorpion. I don't know if we're going to see Scorpion because he's only been teased in Homecoming at the end of that, but nothing ever came out of that. Then again, he's also in jail still. So I do think it's a Sinister Six movie. They have all the characters there. They have all the pieces. They especially have the amazing "Hello, Peter," which I love. But as far as that goes, I do think it's going to be a movie where Peter's up against these people and he's not even going to know them, and they're going to know him. And it's like, for an audience, I feel like that's going to hurt us because there's no connected, like that personal matter that I was talking about earlier. And to me, I'm going to take points off. If it ends with them still in the MCU or being lost in a multiverse, I'm going to look at this movie and say, you did it again, and you let me down again with Tom Holland Spider-Man. But if it ends with the Spider-Verse and goes that route, I'm going to sit here and say, oh my God, this is going to be it. This is going to be everything I've wanted from this character is going to happen now. Because I want him to be isolated. I want him to be on his own. But now I'm having doubts because I feel like this is why I brought up this part about the movies of the post-credit scene before. Spider-Man will return. What was at the end of Infinity War? You remember?
Infinity War.
The Avengers will continue or something like that, or like Thanos will return or something like that.
I said Thanos will return.
Thanos will return. Okay, so Marvel goes out, MCU, like they go out of their way. Marvel Studios goes out of their way to say something.
And everybody keeps forgetting, even though it is a Marvel contract, it is still a Sony film.
But with that being said,
Sony does not run everything.
But Sony didn't come out and say that. Not that. I'm sorry, I said something. So Marvel comes out and says right away, expect Spider-Man to return, expect Thanos to return. Even if we knew Avengers Part 1, Infinity War, it was originally Part 1, sorry. Infinity War and Endgame were going to be happening.
Which I'm still utterly confused because a lot of people, and this was Jake too. Jake didn't know this at first either. But when we walked into the theater, I already knew this was a Part 1.
Yeah, it's been like that for years.
But people did not understand that Infinity War would have ended. They're like, oh, there's a Part 2 to like what? They thought this was like the final end, like the final battle. I'm over here like, I don't know where that got lost in translation.
I don't know either because it was Part 1 and 2 for like all the way throughout. Like when they first announced Phase 3, it was Part 1 and 2, and then they changed it like right before, and they announced everywhere Infinity War, and then Endgame will be next.
Some people didn't get the memo, I guess, but
I don't know.
I just don't. Bottom line for me, and I'm going to let you talk because you're going to close this segment out, but I just don't see. I don't see how within the next 5 years, Marvel's got everything lined out. They even got Blade coming out at some point.
I can't wait.
They got everything coming out. They don't got room for Spider-Man. Sony has room for Spider-Man. Just bring him back in, and that's why I'm saying they can't, unless they're just finding a way to bring Tobey Maguire back in to be a Spider-Man. There is no way I can see Tom Holland Spider-Man going back into the MCU at the end of this. I think No Way Home is a good title. I think with the MCU of how they're going forward and everything else, they're showing that they're going to go darker.
And towards space as a whole.
And what does Spider-Man have anything to do with space?
And he doesn't. I agree with you there because he's a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It's weird if you throw him out there.
So you know what? He's going to stay in the Spider-Verse.
So with all that being said, I just want to go back to explain my thought process real quick because I'm kind of like I'm wishy-washy right now. I'm back and forth because I really want that Spider-Verse idea. And to me, it makes more sense than anything. But I don't see it happening still because Sony would much rather have that partnership so they could play hardball is what I keep on telling myself. But going back to that logic I was using with the post-credit scene, again, Marvel is upfront and honest. Like, hey, expect to see this character because something big's going to happen, okay? Spider-Man will return, and I believe the following movie he came back in was Infinity War, correct? After Homecoming? Yeah, that's right, it is. So that happened. Thanos will return. Next big movie that happened was Endgame. Okay, cool, great. End of Venom. Nothing, just a scene. And your interpretation and cut. As if it were any other post-credit scene throughout the MCU that never had anything said afterwards. That makes me truthfully believe, and I'm wishy-washy now, and there was your argument, and then there was my argument, and there was the middle ground, and now I'm taking that middle ground, and I'm convincing myself fully of the Spider-Verse, because I do think that was left intentionally with nothing there, because there's a movie that's going to bridge that gap, and go figure, the next Spider-Man movie, again, we've talked about it, we've beaten it to the ground at this point, No Way Home, that's supposed to connect Venom 2's ending, and where we're going to be at with everything.
And even if it doesn't connect it, though, okay,
well, to some format. Not directly. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like it's going to get Spider-Man there, and I see that, and I look at that more now because I just think everybody needs to. I know all these Spider-Man fans are going to lose their mind because they lost their mind as soon as they it's like the contract's up with Marvel and Sony. They already lost their minds when that was announced, and then they're like, oh, then they got it back, and they're like, oh, and it was like trending on Twitter or whatever, like, oh, Spider-Man's back in the MCU. Do they have to announce their contracts?
They don't have to. And
so there's stuff that we could.
I think it's smart that they don't, but listen, it's going to leak. People are going to know it anyway. But you guys, I'm talking straight to you, Spider-Man people.
My Spider people.
You need to prepare yourself for what's going to happen. Just saying. Prepare yourself. That's my end note. Do you have a final note?
Give me Spider-Gwen.
Hummel, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem.
We've we're up to 140. Longest podcast that we have so far.
I've been holding in my pee since the start.
Sign off, everybody. Donnie Shields Unedited Podcast. Tune in to more episodes coming up. We got Hope Speaks episodes coming up as well. We have more short film ideas that we'd like to bring in, and maybe we'll have a full down writing conversation one of these times on Shield of Hope. That'll be fun. Talk about the ideas that we have. Not going to flesh out not going to flesh out the scripts on air because you know what, we don't really want to do that. So thank you guys for tuning in. Enjoy all these episodes. Look back at our previous history. Continue to watch our future history. Like, share, subscribe, do whatever you need to do. Comment below. Thank you guys.
Smash that like button. Smash that subscribe button. Donate to our Patreon that we don't have.
We don't have anything. We really should. Have a great night, everybody.